See did you
Christian, thanks for being here today.
the state audit of ACD's handling of the housing element review?
We're one short for quorum.
Oh, but
No, Will's here, so we can call Scott
Need a Wi-Fi.
downstairs. But we'll put
Two voting members.
We have 5 jurisdictions. We need one.
We extra approve it.
both ends.
Yes.
Who do we have that we can call? We have no Santa Rosans here.
Christian's here.
Oh, there's
Santa Rosa.
Yeah.
Santa Rosa, we can't.
Sorry. I didn't even
It's
know you
farther
did that.
afield.
We have Cotati, Sebastopol, Healdsburg, Santa Rosa County. So Jennifer's online, but
No
She
official
can't.
noticing.
yeah, she can't vote.
We're approving the official noticing. This, you're notifying us.
If we have quorum, we can approve our SB 707.
I was gonna say, sorry, it's just too much to do today to get down there.
Yeah, no problem. If we don't have quorum, we'll
Right?
do it next time. Or next time we get quorum.
We'll probably be online.
Yeah.
Good, but a little heart on the front.
Look how
I would say, let's go ahead and
brought
start.
me out of there.
And then
Aw.
the presentation,
Okay.
if we get
Oh, such a big mistake on my
get
part.
quorum
Not
later,
get
maybe we just bounce back. into-
Yeah,
I
let's
think I'm
bounce.
gonna tell you tonight.
Okay, so just start with
someone who hasn't ever done this
introductions and
before,
then go to number 3.
right? Never know.
Okay.
what's on the-
I drove last night,
We could go through this.
stayed in a hotel.
Did?
Ross,
Then you definitely should.
Ross,
There's no
presentation.
Other than I was working till 11:30 on a grant.
SB 7.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the action we need to take to be able to
Yeah,
meet
no.
remotely and county.
I have
Okay.
made a
So-
pact
But
with
there's no
Daniel that I'm gonna charge every
Okay.
mile.
Start it then.
Legitimately charge,
Okay.
go everywhere that I get to.
Can we see
And I'm gonna bank it all and I'm gonna.
I
do
joined the Zoom to see if I
things
can-
Like this, because I'm not a morning person.
Like,
Like if I had tried to
I'll
drive.
bring it up
It would be
to.
non-functional.
Ron, would
we're
it
doing
be
this
possible to bring up
myself.
the participant list on Zoom?
I'm
on the
gonna see,
screen?
and then I get copy when I need. So. It's a T.
Might help Heather.
I'm up first, so I can like. No. I'm doing
oh yeah, I can see it from
I
there.
know, it was like.
Only one.
I have this with my.
Because I have to.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, Windsor's not here.
Let's.
Joe, there. Jennifer and Robin.
Yeah, so Robin will present.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Sonoma County Transit Authority, of the Planning Advisory Committee. We will start with introductions and we can start here in the room. Will, do you want to start?
Alliance Permit Sonoma Planning.
Christian Candelaria from the city of Santa Rosa.
Chris Barney, Sonoma County Transportation and Climate Authorities.
Jane Riley, Sebastopol.
Ada Chan, ABAG MTC.
Heather Peters, BAFA, Bay Area Housing Finance Authority.
JP Harry, City of Cotati.
And if we want to move over to Zoom, should I just list everybody out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like on Zoom, we have Jessica Jones, Luke Lindenbush, we have Rafael Miranda, and let's see, we have Jennifer Gates and
Tanya Narath from SCTCA.
oh, Tanya from SCTCA, and we have Robin.
Brett.
I think you're good. Okay. Did I get everybody? If I didn't, please let me know on Zoom. Okay. All right. Moving on to item 2, a few administrative items, meeting notes from February 19th. We don't have a quorum here in the room, so we will continue this to the next meeting. Adoption of today's agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda
We
today?
actually can't.
Oh, yeah, we can. Same reason. Um,
So with that, we should decide to proceed as a meeting of the whole, or
okay,
committee as the whole of a whole.
okay.
So-
So we will proceed as a committee of the whole for today. And then item C, Brown Act SB 707. We have a quick update for that today.
Good morning, and I will give a brief update on some new provisions to the Brown Act that will directly affect this and our other advisory committee meetings. So next time there is a quorum, it can be approved, and this will give some more participation option. Get that clicker. Vote participation option. And I'll keep this brief since I know there's a lot on the agenda here today, but basically, so this is, an update on the new provisions of SB 707, which was just passed late last year and is now coming into effect. And so the Brown Act, as you know, ensures open public meetings, public access, and participation and transparency, and applies to all of our public committees as well as our board. These updates will not be as major to our agency as some, just because we have allowed remote public participation the whole time. So folks have always been able to log in remotely and provide public comment or similar. So the updates to the rules, SB 707 updates and streamlines teleconferencing options, and expands remote participation options for both advisory bodies, which is what the PAC is, as well as multi-jurisdictional bodies, which is our board. And they are authorized through January 1st, 2030. So eligible bodies, basically our legal has determined that this committee, as well as the others, are eligible. Basically, it's just got to be advisory and not taking final action on legislation, contracts, or be like, police oversight, things like that. We do have committees that deal with taxes, but they are not making the final decisions. That's coming down to our board. So all of these can use the new provisions, and the new provisions themselves are allowing for remote participation for meeting members. And basically the committee will approve it. And then once approved, there will be a physical meeting location. So that will be here in our boardroom. We will be here, but you do not necessarily have to be if you choose not to. And so this will allow for committee members to log in as long as you have audio and video capabilities, similar to the older AB 2449 provisions. You must disclose whether there's anyone over 18 in the room with you. And basically all votes must be roll call. And if remote access fails, you will not be able to vote. But we did determine that unlike some previous teleconference situations, it does not crash the whole meeting. So essentially, there's been cases where it has. If an individual member loses connectivity, basically they can't vote and they do not count towards quorum. However, you do not need to have a quorum in the room. That's the big thing. So once this is approved, the quorum is overall. That's kind of the basics. And so unlike, there are still just cause provisions. There's some more disability access that we're big fans of, but it really isn't even necessary in this case, just because you can You don't have to disclose your location. This does not have to be posted previously. It'd be good if you want to let us know if you're going to be participating remotely or not, you can, but it's not necessary in this case. So once a quorum is present, the PAC will be asked to authorize these new SB 707 provisions. It does need to be renewed every 6 months. However, that could be done remotely as well. I will say that it's a bit of a learning curve for all of us and for Dawn, and just as we're kind of learning to make this work. At the beginning of this year, we switched fully to the webinar format for our advisory committee meetings, which was recommended by ISD for security. But it will mean that we will probably sometimes folks will end up as attendees as opposed to presenters, and there will be a little bit of delay. So do please bear with us as we get smoother with that. But in the end, the public will still have access. They'll be allowed to raise their hand and provide audio public comment. But yeah, I think this really aligns with SCTCA's goals in terms of less driving, less GHG emissions, and just greater access for all. So let me know if you have any questions. I will be available. You're welcome to email me too later if you have any, just because we're kind of still talking to legal about a few details, but we just really hope this opens up meeting participation. Also, if there's jurisdictional slots that are tricky to fill just because people can't always make it down here, this could help. We're a big county. So anyway, please let me know if you have any questions regarding SB 707 updates.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions here in the room or on Zoom? Okay,
Silence.
well, sounds like this is pretty important. So if people can try and get here for the next meeting so we can take action on it, that'd be great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 3, Bay Area Housing Finance Authority, Heather Peter. Yeah.
Okay. I am going to try and use my laptop camera so folks online aren't looking at the back of my head. Let's see if this works. Hello. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm Heather Peters. I'm a principal at Bay Area Housing Finance Authority, commonly known as BAFA, and I work on strategic initiatives. I understand that most of you, if not all of you, have a basic understanding of what BAFA is and what we do. If anyone would like a refresher or is new to BAFA, I have this lovely handout and it will be available electronically to you. Feel free to take a look at it and share it widely. Next slide, please, or my slides, please.
Oh, this lights up. Yeah, I'm pulling them up. Sorry.
Still getting used to the tech here. There we go. Okay, great. So I'm here to give you an update on BAFA's strategic planning. As you all probably know, in 2024, we attempted to go to the ballot for a regional measure that would have raised $20 billion for BAFA to spend. It would have been 20% at the regional level and 80% return to source, which would mean that the counties would have had 80% of that $20 billion. Unfortunately, voter sentiment was not with us in 2024. There was a lot of anti-tax and anti-government polling, so we tragically had to take it off the ballot. But we reserved our resources and we have regrouped and we've engaged in a strategic planning process that I'll talk about today. That is setting us on a path to programmatic self-sufficiency in the interim between now and when we are able to get to the ballot. And we are currently moving towards hopefully 2028 as our soonest opportunity. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, starting with value proposition. A lot of folks ask, well, why can't we just all do it ourselves and keep 100% of the money? And it's a very valid question. The value proposition of having a regional agency is the need for a strong regional voice to win transformative resources. Bay Area must work together to achieve impact at scale. Unique regional authority can unlock billions in future funding for affordable housing and homelessness prevention. It can affect structural change in affordable housing delivery systems to improve efficiencies and impacts at scale. And we can have a self-sufficient public lender that reinvests earnings back into communities where reducing reliance on repeated tax increases. And that last one really bears a little bit of exposition. There's a model that's been in use in New York City for 50 years now. And with the initial investment of bond funds, voter-approved funds where they had to go to the ballot, over time, they're acting as a bank. And so instead of having B of A or some commercial entity make loans, collect interest, and collect fees, the government does that at reduced rates, discount to market for developers. And then those interest and fees, instead of going to the private sector, go into the entity, fund its operations 100%, and are able to fund some really creative and difficult to fund things like tenant protections, homelessness prevention, rent subsidies, and quite a bit. And the beauty of it is once it gets enough runway, you don't need to keep going back to the voters and beg them for more and more and more. So you're not fighting that voter sentiment of, hey, didn't we just vote on this? What did you do with the money? Next slide, please. So here's an overview of our strategic planning process that's been going on for about 18 months now. Our North Star is always that BAFA was created to raise transformative revenue to meet regional affordable housing needs at scale. Our purpose is to articulate the vision and plan for sustainable vision for BAFA until capitalized at scale. So that's that interim time between now and when we get a bond passed or a ballot measure. I say bond because it was a bond last time, but there are a number of different revenue mechanisms in our enabling statute that we can choose to use. And our process was an inclusive process. It was necessary to maintain, strengthen, and expand the coalition of BAFA supporters. We broke the strategic planning process down into 4 modules. The first module was regional revenue measure, reflections and framework for future ballot measure. That was super necessary to go first because we recognized that it was not a kumbaya last time. It's a big region. There are a lot of interests and it was challenging. So we needed to acknowledge that up front. The second module is a funding strategy and financial sustainability plan. The third module is looking at our regional financing products and approaches and right-sizing them to the current resources. And the fourth is regional housing programs, right-sizing them. Next slide, please. So module 1, that's that lessons learned phase. We went out, we had well over 50 meetings, one-on-ones, group meetings, coming out to groups like this to really be reflective, to stop and say, okay, what went well, what didn't. The strengths we identified were that the BAFA ABAG MTC partnership was strong, that technical assistance to counties and local governments was very valuable. As I mentioned, you guys would get 80% of the funds back and you would need to be transparent, have a expenditure plan, and that's all required by statute. So we did a lot of technical assistance on that, and we gathered housing professionals from local agencies that would receive the money to do peer-to-peer learning and struggle through that first-time process together. And also, there's a lot of regional housing capacity and expertise with the establishment of BAFA now. The challenges were real. We had a dual strategy of both the regional revenue measure and also, you may remember, Prop 5 was on the ballot, and that was a statewide ballot measure to reduce the approval threshold from 2/3 voter approval to 55. We needed Prop 5 to win. There was no way we were going to win without it, and Prop 5 was not winning. It ultimately was unsuccessful, and our polling in advance showed us that it wasn't going to succeed. Therefore, we saved the money and regrouped for another day. The most important thing to acknowledge in the reflections was there was an error made in the ballot question. That was a situation where in the multiple iterations, there wasn't really tight proofreading and double checking. We have corrected for that. We now have internal bond counsel and external bond counsel. We're going to have eyes on every word, every period, every comma the next time. That was not ultimately the reason why we took it off the ballot. It was corrected in time for the proper language to go on the ballot, but it was a very important lesson learned. Challenges are the complexity of the statute and trying to communicate to not only just folks like you who are experts in the field, but the public on exactly what we were doing. And there was lack of consensus on some issues. Quite frankly, we never worked out the labor standards, and we never brought the business community on board to endorse the measure. Economic conditions and tax fatigue, which we're all very well aware of. Next slide, please. So what are we doing moving forward on regional revenue measure? We're broken it into 3 phases, and they're roughly 3 years. 2026, right now we're involved in stakeholder engagement, like what I'm doing with you here today. Phase 2 in 2027, we're going to go to the legislature and try and clean up some of the enabling legislation that made our lives challenging, and also address some of the concerns of stakeholders with the statutory language. Our goal is to go as a unified group so that we work in advance to come up with a strategy for legislative language, and we don't have a food fight in Sacramento. And finally, round 3, 2028, that is the actual ballot measure itself. And once a decision is made to go on the ballot, BAFA as a government entity, even if it is our measure, even if we put it on the ballot ourselves, like RM4 was last time, our role is very strictly informational, nonpartisan. We don't take us for or against a stand or urge anyone to vote one way or the other. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is that phase 1. This is what we're in now, 2026. The goal is to build broad support for a policy framework, not necessarily every word in the statute, but broad strokes for our enabling legislation. We're setting a big table. We learned our lesson. We need to talk to everybody early and not wait till we get right to the ballot or to the legislature. And we're doing a hybrid structure this time. You may recall, if you were around that back in 2019, 2017 to 2019, the region ran a process called CASA. And it was we had a wonderful presentation here about the Brown Act. And it's very important to have public transparency in meetings like this and to follow that precisely. But one of the challenges of CASA being a Brown Act meeting was it's difficult to have conversations about some of the nuances of challenges and negotiations in that format. So this time we're doing a hybrid structure. We are doing our full public meetings like we always do with all our legislation and all our staff reports like I'm giving here. And there's also a parallel structure that is outside the government where stakeholders are self-organizing. And they've worked together to have their own discussions and come to us as a stakeholder at their table, as well as them coming to us as a stakeholder at our table. We're developing shared principles to ensure that the outside stakeholders and BAFA's interests align. It's very clear that BAFA will be carrying the legislation ideally, and so those two processes need to be in conversation. There are basically 4 policy issues that have risen to the top. These may not be the only ones we do, but these are the 4 we learned from last time. That the revenue mechanisms need to be examined. As I mentioned, we chose to go with a bond. There are other ways to raise revenue like parcel taxes or head taxes or commercial linkage fees in our statute, but we're right-sizing that and re-examining. Our statute was passed in 2019. A lot has changed since then. Labor standards, I mentioned, revenue distribution, that 20-80%. There's a nuance in that the 80% goes to the counties and also to select cities that have a very high share of low-income RENA. In Sonoma County, that was Santa Rosa, would receive a direct allocation and would have their own expenditure planning. But there were challenges we heard from cities who were not getting direct allocation about some mistrust and relationship issues with the county and not feeling comfortable that they were going to get their fair share of the return to source. We have already amended our statute to address that concern in one step, in that now by statute, the county must consult every city that's not a direct distribution city in their expenditure planning, but that's open for conversation. And finally, eligible uses. The statute requires us to spend a minimum amount on the 3 Ps, preservation, production, and protections. But there's conversations about what could be eligible. We're having multiple touch points, and we need to balance inclusivity and capacity limitations. This is a time of great austerity in the philanthropic community and in federal grants. So a lot of the CBOs and the community-based networks they don't have the money to come to meeting after meeting after meeting. So we're engaging them, meeting them where they are. Next slide, please. So module 2, now we're moving into our funding strategy. We need to raise money. We need to continue to raise money. We have a $15 million ask at the state for the budget this year. There is a slight surplus, but we are not counting our chickens before they hatch. We're making an ask. BAFA is the Bay Area Housing Finance Agency. There are also similar agencies in Los Angeles and in San Diego. And we are working with them on a joint budget ask. Our portion would be 15. That's the largest portion of the 3. It's a political strategy because there are a lot of lawmakers from those regions. And we feel like going as a group will get more attention than us going together alone. We're pursuing a lot of funding and philanthropy. I was up till midnight for the last 2 nights working on a grant application. And we got a $6 million grant from the last dollars of Chan Zuckerberg. So we're making progress there. And also generating revenue from BAFA's programs. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry. I go fast. I'm a New Yorker. So we are on module 3. This is the, did we skip one?
I thought it told her to go through.
Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't sure. I was there. It was slow on the monitor here. So module 3, this is what are we going to do with our programs in the interim? We're going to launch a new mixed income financing program. I'm sure lots of people have lots of questions about that. I'm not going to go into the details, but it is something that was designed in conversation with our partners, our stakeholders. We are very intentionally not trying to duplicate effort. I understand we're having a wonderful conversation here with the red, and BAFA is in no way seeking to compete with any oiled machines such as the red. We're seeking to be additive. It's a kit of parts. There are a number of pieces of it. And in the next slide, please, I'll show you the 3 basic buckets. There's capital, there's operating budget support for projects, and there's perhaps an ownership opportunity. These are conduit bonds, subordinate debts, essential purpose bonds, 501c3 ownership, and preferred equity. I won't get into the weeds. There is a contact at the bottom of the slides. If you want to get into the weeds, Lydia Tan is who to talk to. The bottom light green one, operating budget. Those two are really interesting. Those are pilot programs that we are keeping going. The Doorway Housing Portal, some of you may have seen. It is like the Zillow for affordable housing, where people who are looking for affordable housing can hop on, do a search, and actually apply right online. It saves a lot of money for operators, and it allows for lotteries and very transparent and equitable placements. And then the welfare tax exemption. You may have heard in the news recently, your neighbors in Marin are experiencing a unfortunate foreclosure on a missing middle project that was financed through some really creative financing. This is our answer to that. We have guardrails to make sure that there are truly affordable rents. Next slide, please. Module 4, our programs. As I mentioned, we are sustaining Doorway. We're launching the mixed income program. Unfortunately, there are programs that we are winding down. The first 3 are, they were always intended to be one and done. They were deliverables-based projects. Pipeline reports, eviction studies, and tribal consultations. They're available. They're on our website. The following 3 were very capital intensive pilots, and unfortunately that one-time funding is gone. We're not ending them early. They're running through their full course, but we will not be renewing them until we have capital at scale. They're very successful priority sites, loans and technical assistance, preservations, loans and technical assistance, and a Napa County rental assistance program serving seniors at risk at homelessness. Next slide, please. Next steps. So here we are today. We're talking about the regional revenue measure. We're going towards that 2027 legislation change. We're raising money. We're launching the mixed income program. And I'm open for questions from you, but I want to pose one question to you. We are directed by our board to go out and engage local elected officials. We understand that where that happens and where they meet and gather in different counties is in different places. Everyone doesn't have just a mayor's conference to go talk to folks. So from you, I would like to hear, where in Sonoma County should we be engaging to talk to local elected officials in a group setting instead of trying to reach them one-on-one? And with that, I'm done with my presentation. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate the presentation. Does anybody here in the room have any questions or suggestions for Heather on where to reach out? I know we have mayors and council members here in Sonoma County. I don't know the specifics of it. I need to check in with our city clerk on when that occurs.
And anybody can feel free to email me as well. It's
Okay.
just my first initial last name, hpeters@bayareametro.gov.
Okay.
And my email is in your calendar invite.
Yeah, they rotate. They have a mayor and city council meeting, and then they rotate between jurisdictions for that meeting and dinner. So it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
That is the inside info I need. So if anyone can get me that information, I would be deeply grateful.
Yes.
I just don't know what I've only been to 2 of them, and I'm trying to remember what the business items were. But yeah, we can work through our clerk when the next one here is, and then see how agendas get set.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yes, I can check with our city clerk too. I'm pretty sure that we just hosted maybe last month. But I will check in and get back to you.
Thank you.
Looks like Robin has her.
Okay. And Robin, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to suggest that the Renewal Enterprise District has meetings every other month with a couple of Board of Supervisors and a couple of City Council people, and we would love to have you come and present your work plan and talk to the red.
Would love to come, and nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Okay.
And, Heather, I'd also add that we could invite you to the SCTCA Board of Directors as well. There's one member from each jurisdiction and 3 of the Board of Supervisors there too. So that's another venue.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it sounds like we'll get you that information.
Great. Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
I have some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that was like mixed income based. Is there like a specific categories you're targeting to fund for affordable housing?
I should know that, but I don't know it off the
Okay.
top of my head. I don't want to mislead you.
Okay.
There are some restrictions in our statute as to what affordability levels we can do at the region versus what can be done at the local. So I'll refer you to Lydia on that.
Okay. And then is this like a fund given to the cities directly that they give to developers, or do developers reach directly?
Developers apply directly to us.
Okay.
And one thing I didn't mention about the welfare tax exemption, which is part of that mixed income kit of parts, is that we're very cognizant of local governments and local budgets being desperately constrained. And so we will never grant a welfare tax exemption that affects your property tax base without consulting you first. And if you don't think the project is a good idea, they won't get a welfare tax exemption from us. Anything else?
Okay, it looks like that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 4, the Renewal Enterprise District 2026 update by Robin Stefani.
Will you be bringing up the slides or shall I do that?
Don, it might be easier if Robin can bring up her slides. Robin, let's have you share your slides if that's okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
Can you see them okay? What? Let me know when you're.
It's not, oh, it's coming up now.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. So hi, everyone. I'm Robin Stefani from the Renewal Enterprise District. I know most of you. There's a couple of fresh names and faces and folks that I haven't spoken with directly. So I'm going to kind of give a high level overview of what the RED is doing, what we're up to, and then go into our work plan moving forward for the rest of 2026. So the Renewal Enterprise District formed in 2017 after our fires and is a joint powers authority between the City of Santa Rosa and the County of Sonoma. It was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity when it got started to think regionally and cooperate regionally on housing. And the idea was to create housing that was in the right place and in the right mix of incomes that met the needs of the communities in which they were located and were uniquely positioned to make use of job opportunities, transportation, and the economic kind of opportunities that lie in certain parts of the county to build up housing where we want it. And we call that, the idea of that is complete communities. And so this is one of the images that you've probably seen if you've watched any of the presentations that we've done. And I like to point this one out because this kind of encapsulates the goals and ideas in an image of what we are trying to achieve here. So how do we do this? Well, we have two organizations. One is the Joint Powers Authority, and then the Joint Powers Authority helped incubate and launch a 501c3 called the Red Housing Fund. The Red Housing Fund works independently and has an independent board, but we are tied together through certain mechanisms, which I'm going to explain, and we are obviously working. We're coordinated in the sense that we're mission driven for the same purpose and mission. So what we're doing is we're accelerating the production of infill housing, and to date, we have helped bring 632 new units online in a short order of time, basically about 3 years. The Red Housing Fund has launched its third NOFA, and so the second NOFA was for 1.3 million, and the third NOFA was for 5 million. And so this tool that we've developed has really been successful in helping to recycle money back into the community and help to continue that acceleration in the community. So we're hoping to grow that through some of the mechanisms that Heather mentioned. And so we're very much kind of aligning with the region on Plan Bay Area 2050 and aligning with BAFA and ABEG and MTC and SCTCA to make sure that we are continuing to uncover new resources that we can bring to the table to help with this infill housing, and then coordinate our efforts among all of the jurisdictions and within staff in different departments so that we're all rowing in the same direction. We're also pairing public financing with private financing. And so we're out looking for private financing, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're doing to bring that private financing to the table. And then, we are continuing to try to refresh the criteria by which we evaluate projects so that we're staying relevant to not just the market cycles, but also, the changes that are happening locally within the workforce, and just be very responsive to local needs, which I think is one of the unique things that this organization brings to the table, is just that we are sort of boots on the ground. So the red is the JPA, and the red is setting the project criteria. And like I said, we are looking at aligning our project criteria to the Plan Bay Area growth geographies. And so we're following along with that process right now, and we're looking at that and evaluating that and reaching out to staff and to jurisdictions to confirm that those geographies are the right geography, that we can produce a interactive map that we can host on our website that will help to illustrate the opportunities within that geography, and will help us kind of look at some of the nexuses between transportation and economic development and housing, and how those kind of interact. So this is just a list of our project criteria. All of this is available on the Red Housing Fund's website and the Renewal Enterprise District. And this is how projects are kind of evaluated for the Red Housing Fund loan program. But also we work collaboratively on grants. And like I said, that private, bringing that private philanthropic money to the table. And so this is the criteria which we're going to be focused on. We like all housing, but really we're focused on doing active things that support the housing that kind of meets that complete communities that I spoke of. This is some of those collaborative grants that I've mentioned that just kind of show kind of the overall scale that we're talking about. When we do housing development in the right places, it can really have an upward mobility and an economic multiplier effect. This is the Red Housing Fund snapshot, just to show you kind of where they're at. And I guess I misspoke. Sorry, it was 1.9 million was the second NOFA. I think I said 1.3. And then 5 million was the NOFA that just closed in April 1st. And what was really heartening to hear was that there was really good response for that NOFA and some really interesting projects. And so that's great. We continue to be a strong housing development community, even with the market constraints. We're doing a lot of the things that we need to be doing right now to continue to spur that housing development. One of the things that I want to continue to bring to the forefront of this conversation is that we're not just talking about housing, we're talking about housing that allows for upward mobility and stabilization within the community. And so this is an interesting map. If you've never checked this out, it's kind of fun to poke around in, and you can kind of drill down into these different segments to find out kind of how they get these numbers. But housing is a foundation. It is the place that, you know, we're focused on, but we're working with our partners within the greater fabric of the community to really think about upward mobility and the role that the right type of housing can play in facilitating that upward mobility. If you live and work in a community where you can walk to places and you have access to the services that the community works to bring to the community, then you can reduce costs like transportation costs and other health costs, and then you're also preserving, you know, space for the fact that we are interconnecting the community when we build these type of housings, these types of complete communities. And that first image that I showed, where you are being able to interact with your neighbor and you're interacting with your, you know, the people that work in your grocery store and the people that work in your schools and whatnot. So the benefits go beyond just housing. The things that we're working on this year are to update that RED project criteria to be responsive to the changing climate and to the growing JPA. So we're hoping to continue to speak with everyone in each jurisdiction about what it's going to take to be able to invite them to join the JPA. We have our first interested member is Katati, and so we're working through some of the changes that we need to make to the structure in order to be able to facilitate adding new members. So it's really exciting. In my opinion, and in the opinion of many folks, and also Heather, you mentioned it, you know, housing's a regional game, and we really need to be coordinated on this because we don't live and work in one community, and we don't hire people from the same community. And so when we talk about producing housing that's meeting the needs of the community, it has to be a regional conversation. The other thing that is on the horizon, which doesn't affect all of the jurisdictions, but is an interesting opportunity that we don't want to lose, is the opportunity zones, which are up for, they've been approved and kind of added into tax law, which allow for investment in these opportunity zones. And there's some benefits to these types of investors that invest in opportunity zones. And from the research that I've done, it doesn't look like we've really maximized the fact that we have an opportunity zone. So I'm going to be looking at how we can both ensure that we maintain our opportunity zone status and that we maximize that for both housing and economic development. The other thing that we are doing is working more collaboratively, not trying to duplicate efforts, I think is really important in the greater financing and planning world. So where we can work with MTC, ABEG, and BAFA, we are going to really try to maximize that shared resource. And then also on the financing side, we had been considering what bringing another CDFI to the community would look like. It's at this point, given kind of the climate, we decided that it made more sense to focus on just building CDFI relationships so that we can continue to bring those dollars to the community. And so maybe some of you know about the Sonoma County Housing Fund, which was created kind of at the same time that the RED was created. And it was an effort that was launched by the community and run through the chamber, the Metro Chamber. We have been cooperating with them to see what we can do to grow that influence. And we have several new projects that we'll be looking at, some creative financing, I will say, or some patient financing and low cost financing. So hopefully, and that will be a countywide, available to the countywide projects. And those projects have certain project criteria that we can dig into. But I mention that because this group may know of projects that are kind of on the ropes that might need a little shot in the arm. And just because maybe you're not a JPA member doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of this program. So if you have one of those projects, reach out to me and we'll get you coordinated and connected up with the folks that are managing that CDFI. That CDFI also has a new program. It's the Housing Trust Silicon Valley. They have a $200 million building accelerator or building incentive fund that they just launched. And so we're pretty excited about the opportunity to kind of bring low cost financing to our housing developers. That product goes up to, I think, about 140 area medium income. And so that's another great opportunity for projects that can help with that mixed income, missing middle income subset that we are really challenged to get built here, but we really desperately need. So yeah, happy to talk to anybody about ideas about how to do that and what we need to do on that. We have always thought about doing the essential function bonds and 6320 bonds, and there's been some systemic challenges to that. I think we have figured out how to overcome those. And so, we will be, we have our first potential project that we are looking at right now. And that is an exciting opportunity that we're trying to figure out how we can leverage across the county. So I probably will be reaching out to Heather to talk to her about how they're thinking about that. And then we are also looking at master leasing coupled with a guarantee fund. And that's the philanthropic piece that I mentioned before. So I won't go into too much detail there, but if you are interested in learning about that, reach out and we can kind of dig into it a little bit and I can show you the model. And then also we are looking at TIFIA financing for the TOCs, and we're waiting for they have a new funding cycle coming out for planning pilot for that. And once I see that, then I will be able to talk more about what we're doing there because I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. They have some changes to how they're doing it, but the thinking there is that we could work regionally on an implementation plan for TOCs. So kind of building off the framework that you all have been working on for your TOC planning access and planning work, we will start talking about how we actually get those projects built and what that pipeline of projects would look like. And that's also work that we were starting to do when there was the housing bond on the table, and then we kind of stopped. And so we will pick that back up and we will be looking at how we can kind of build out that pipeline in a logical, fair way. And looking towards 2028, if there is a bond on the ballot and it's successful, we will be in a great position to kind of carry out that work and leverage whatever financing and capacity comes our way from that. So that is what we're doing. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I can go into more detail?
Need more housing developers in the house.
Yeah.
Be the one.
That would-
Meeting, yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody here in the room or on Zoom have any questions for Robin? Okay,
There's a question in the Q&A.
is there one?
Oh, okay.
Is that an old one? Okay. Anybody with their hand raised? Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, Robin. Appreciate the presentation. Okay, moving on to item 5, the Bay Area Air District Planning Healthy Places Guidance Document. So a presentation by Tanya with SCTCA.
Good morning, and I will keep this item brief. I'm basically here to share a request from one of our contacts at the Air District. They are in the process of updating a guidebook called the Planning Healthy Places Guidebook that was, I think, last updated in 2016. And they're looking for best practice examples from local jurisdictions in two specific areas. One in terms of zoning or planning code to create additional health protections for communities related to air pollution exposure. And then second, jurisdictions that have developed their own maps of disadvantaged communities for SB 1000. So wanted to pass that on to you all. I did include a link in the agenda to the current guidebook. And if you do have some examples or best practices that you'd like considered for inclusion in the updated guidebook, you could either send those to me, or we can get you Jameson Roger Gibson is the Air District staff member who's heading up this project. So, and some examples that you can see in the document if you take a look at it are policies that require mitigation strategies like air filters in buildings that are near sources of air pollution, or use of vegetation like tree planting along corridors that separate, say, residential housing from sources of air pollution. So those are a couple examples. And in the document itself, you'll see that they've included examples from general plans in, I think, San Francisco, Hayward, some other cities in the Bay Area. So just wanted to pass that request along, and happy to share your examples with the Air District or get you in contact with the staff member.
Okay, thank you so much, Tanya. If anybody has anything, maybe take a look sometime this week and we can send those your way if we have anything.
Thank you very much. And she didn't give me a deadline, but I imagine as soon as possible. So
Okay,
thank
that
you.
sounds great. We'll send you something if we have it.
Thank you.
So much. Okay, and moving on to item 6, transit-oriented communities policy by Chris.
Yeah, and this will be really quick. This is just a really quick update. So we've linked the February MTC Commission action on TOC policy in the agenda packet. So in case you want to take a look at that, we've presented on this in some detail in the past, but just to give a really elevator pitch version of that, it's shifted to an incentive-based approach. So rewarding jurisdictions that are implementing the policy. Yeah, and thank you, Katati, for being on the bleeding edge of this. You've been so we're hoping that we'll be able to pull some of that incentive-based funding here into the county. I think Katati and some of our other jurisdictions are well positioned to be able to access some of that. The deadline for yeah, for working on your scores, getting those to a higher level has been pushed out to 2027. So there's a little more time. And there's a webinar on TOC policy updates on May 6th. So just wanted to get that on everyone's radar. There's a link to that registration page in the agenda packet. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that webinar and provide a place to talk about TOC policy if there's appetite for that.
Okay, sounds great. Any questions in the room? On Zoom? Okay, moving on. I think we have enough time to move on to item 7 for the Sonoma County Travel Model and Travel Behavior Study update from Adam.
All right, good morning, everyone. So, yeah, bringing you an RFP that we're working on right now. There's kind of 3 tasks that we're focused on, so we'd love to get your feedback, and feel free to email me as well. We've got a little bit of time before we'll be sending this out. So the first task is an important one where we need to validate our travel model. So right now, as you all well know, past conversations, we've updated to 2023 existing conditions. One of the things that we'd like to do over the next little while with consultants' help to confirm is actually to set our new existing conditions for the travel model to 2025. Sometimes it's just a little bit easier to get the current snapshot rather than say what was built, 3 years ago, for instance. So the first task will just be having the consultant validate those 2025 existing conditions results across the different land uses, and then also use our projections as well, just to make sure that they're in line. The two projections being the MTC's 2050 plus, and then the ones that we're working on right now for the general plan build out. So and I can go into more depth on these three tasks if you've got questions or if you'd like to hear more as well. So the second task I think is probably most exciting for all of you. It's going to be our, I think, third update now of our travel behavior study. So this is using big data from mobile sources, vehicles, other mobile devices that can be able to track movement within Sonoma County and outside between adjacent counties as well too. So this gives us a great sense of just both helpful to calibrate our model, but also just understand a little bit more about the travel patterns and opportunities too that come from understanding how we move around. I think one of the highlights from the last one was showing that for jurisdictional trips that stay within their own city or town limits, the average travel distance was like 2.5 miles. So identifying that some of those trips could say be replaced by bicycle or e-bike is kind of helpful for calibrating what our expectations are for trying to transition into more active modes of transportation and meet those greenhouse gas reduction emissions as well as Vision Zero too. So you'll recall that we have a couple of several zones that we've looked at to be able to measure that connectivity, the kind of trips as they're generated between and within Sonoma County. So they're primarily kind of at the city limits, and then the county is broken up into a couple smaller sections as well. So for reference, if you do have suggestions or changes, recommendations on how those boundaries could be realigned, particularly with the county, I think there was some feedback to just look at kind of where we might be able to distinguish specific kind of centers of activity. That would be great feedback that we could then try to pass along to the consultant so we can have a expectation of what type of kind of geography of detail to measure where our trips are taken between. And then the third task, these are kind of, I should mention, are ideally then taken in order as well. So consultant would complete the validation and then the travel behavior study. And then the third one is really looking at kind of more of an on-call support and training for a longer term process that SCTCA it will be undertaking with MTC to transition our trip-based model to an MTC's activity-based model. So that there's a lot of technological differences, slightly more intense data processing, or much more intense data processing, I should say. And so it helps to be able to have some type of guidance as we make this transition, understanding, what types of projects or plans are most appropriately modeled according to what program we have. So figuring out, do we still keep the trip-based model for certain uses and use the activity-based model for others? These are all different things that we'd like to just have a little bit more guidance on. So that's kind of a high-level view of what task 3 will include. So let's see. I'll maybe just stop there and see if there's an interest, any questions, or if we want to dive into into the scope of work anymore. I think we do have a little bit of time, but I also want to just, yeah, be respectful for other items on the agenda. So.
Thank you so much, Adam. I do think we have some time for questions. If anybody here in the room has questions for Adam.
I
or on
think we're
Zoom.
gonna sit down and with John. And
Yes.
figure it out. We're a small enough jurisdiction, we can figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe that's in regards to the general plan build out review, which, yeah, we're deep in the heart of right now. So thank you all for that. But yeah, that sounds good.
And, Ellen, maybe I can prime the pump here a little bit. And, maybe this is just some questions to think about for later. Maybe you don't have any questions now, but if you could get back to Adam about, if you've used the travel behavior study or the model in the past, like what primary use cases are, what you wish the model would tell you, or what questions you would like answered by the travel behavior study, that'd be helpful too. And we can try and build some of that in. And, one of the items that Adam has added to the scope here is to have some sort of data dashboard or interface that'll allow you to dig into the travel behavior study data without having to call us and ask for the reports or dig through big data tables. So that's another thing that would hopefully make some of the results and outputs a little more useful for everyone.
So play with Caltrans.
Let's see. Yeah, so we could use some of the Caltrans facilities, their counts as validation as part of this. So it's somewhat independent of Caltrans, but we do use the Caltrans traffic counts to be able to calibrate the model to the travel behaviors survey to say what's the big data showing, and then what are the actual numbers along very limited few key choke points in the county that are actually regularly measured.
I've got a big one.
Yeah, right, you do.
Does Caltrans then turn around and use any of our work?
I'm not familiar with any case studies.
Yeah, you want me to?
Yeah.
So yeah, they do use both for project level studies across the county. So,
Good.
so it's in their
Happy to hear it.
everyone's interest to make sure that it's good information in there. It's used not only for development project level review, but Caltrans project level analysis too. So, yeah,
They're getting better.
yeah.
I'll mention just one topic that came up when we presented this at the Transit Technical Advisory Committee was an interest in trying to be able to disaggregate public transit from the big data. Historically, that's been pretty challenging, so we don't have high hopes, but at least it'll be a question, as well as kind of the active transportation side of things too. Can you tell between people riding versus driving, taking transit? So these are both active transportation and public transit are very, they have early, if any types of modules to try to measure this, and they're still not 100% reliable. So we don't have high hopes, but we're definitely going to be looking into it. So Robin, go ahead, please. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Muted.
Thank you. Sorry. I am curious to know, kind of looking ahead, how this work might help to inform and procure funding for projects that have good active transportation, in addition to, normal transit.
Yeah, I think it might be hard to get the specificity that you're looking at kind of at a yeah, thank you, at that parcel level. It's going to be more kind of at the citywide level, or there's some cases where there's larger like industrial parks or something that might be more contiguous. So it's not a great resource, but what comes to mind, we have a Strava Metro View, which there's a little bit of commuting, but it's usually mostly recreational riders. But we can look at active transportation data through that. It's not going to be, a complete picture, but at least gives you kind of an idea of where some of those primary routes are, at least that people use. So I could offer that as a resource that's more immediate if you're looking to kind of measure the active transportation side of things.
Yeah, maybe it can just meet with you offline and we can look at what you have and I can kind of pick your brain about what's happening in the future coming down from the work that you're doing with this and maybe how we might want to inform it so that we can start using it to justify / promote housing in the right spots.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting, proposition. We'll have to think about that a little bit more, but completely agree. Yes, I'll be in touch.
Okay.
And maybe one thing I'd add that kind of touches on vehicle miles traveled, Robin, like both the travel behavior study and the travel model are used to kind of estimate per capita VMT at the zone level. So, I think that's definitely something that can help support grant applications, right? So even if you're looking at a zone or a certain area of the city, if you can say, hey, this is a lower VMT area, I think that's a good input that could support some applications.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Okay, and that brings us to standing member updates. I know we usually go north to south, so let's try going south to north this time. I don't think there's anybody from Petaluma here. So probably Sonoma would be next.
Oh.
You're first.
Yay. Let's see, we are busy. We've got a few housing projects still in the works that we've talked about before. Still moving forward. We are going to be adopting a whole new set of fees here shortly. Got another finance committee meeting tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next week, and then we'll get to it and get it adopted, probably in place this fall. Completely changing how we do our building fees. And then with that, we're also going to be doing the update to the inclusionary ordinance and our affordable housing impact fee along with that. Hopefully by fall as well. I'm starting to hear the rumblings of how high ours is, which if you don't know, it's 25%. Which is quite high. And then let's see what else. We're one step closer to the general plan. We've done our first complete round of edits, and so we're getting the EIR ready for public comment along with the complete draft of the general plan. And working on a mobile home conversion ordinance, had our third study session last night, which is why my brain is a little fried. We're going to do another study session, so that one's probably going for adoption at this rate this summer at some time. I think those are the big ones that are going on around what we are working on in planning and building. So just plug it along.
All right, busy. Thank you so much. All right, Katati.
Hi. I guess some of the big things that have been happening. We are just finishing up just the last kind of cleanup details with our TOC work. We also, at the same time, we're just completed an ordinance trying to deal with food trucks and sidewalk vending and Miko's, kind of all combined, all the food stuff. We did apply to HCD for pro-housing designation last month, and so we're waiting to hear back on that. Yeah, as well as some PIP funding, hopefully. We have just some small housing projects going on, and kind of one thing that's frustrating is we probably got 500 plus units that we've entitled in the last couple of years. And one of our biggest ones that was moving forward with 178 units and 44 affordable units out of that, they just put the brakes on the whole project, canceled all their meetings. And so we're quite concerned because our other big projects, they're not moving either. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now with a lot of people and trying to meet their price points. And then on a positive note, we just also had a pretty good successful Katati Climate Ready Fair. It was our second one, and I think we're looking to probably will do more in the future. We're just trying to evaluate what we can do, make it better and more interesting for some folks. And that's about it for Katati.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't think anybody from Rohnert Park, so Santa Rosa.
Yes. We are in the middle of TOC submission. It looks like we have one of our categories listed as consistent. We're just working on the next 3 categories. Hoping to hit the deadline. Our RFP will be we're getting our final submissions by the 20th this month. And so we'll be reviewing and getting into contracts soon with that. And then we have a parking study currently ongoing for TDM strategies for the North Station area and hoping to see how we can apply them across our priority development areas. And then we have recently adopted a use permit streamlining program. We have also created a director level permit and lowered quite a few of our land uses for different review authorities to a lower review authority level. And then we recently adopted a housing element implementation program package for 2 of our programs. One of them now has tiny homes on wheels in the city. And then we also are doing various other changes related to care facilities in the city. And then we recently adopted some recent ADU legislation, and then we have our South Santa Rosa specific plan underway. Next Saturday, we have Earth Day. That's here noon to 4 at the Courthouse Square. There'll be a lot of activities for everyone if you would like to go. And then we have some presents from a lot of our city departments, and I will also be there. And then we recently launched a pretty comprehensive food vending website. It's not just food vending. We have a pretty comprehensive overview of all the types of non-traditional food establishments. And then we also recently launched our previously had historic walking tours in 4 of our historic districts.
Great, thank you. Busy. Yeah, very. That's great, thank you. And then I don't think anybody from Windsor. Say that one more time, Don. I don't think that there is anybody from Windsor. And then is Raphael still on here? I think he was on here earlier. Did he leave? Okay, that's okay. Then the county, Will, do you want to go?
Sure. Things are pretty quiet on our front. Our housing projects are still plugging along. Gearing up for some of the general plan stuff. So I would say be on the lookout in your email inboxes for collaboration, information requests, etc. Everything's going into budget in the next couple of months. So it's probably going to be quiet for a little while until things settle down. But nothing new to report.
Thank you. And Jane Sebastopol.
Quiet in the county. I don't know, Will. Never seen that before. So I guess what's noteworthy to me is that we have church properties that are developing like really close to each other, and Yeah, well, that's where the churches are, in residential neighborhoods, and they're big properties. One's completely closing down and one's subdividing. Both of them higher density and near one another and in an area where we have already failing infrastructure. So all this stuff about financing and all this great stuff that we can use money for affordable housing, I'm telling you, if I can't fix my infrastructure, I can't build the affordable housing. So just please, can we keep that in mind? It's an issue. Other than that, we've recently adopted, we opted in for 1033, the individual sale of ADUs, and I got a lot of interest in that. The interest is predominantly from developers who want to develop subdivisions and then put an ADU on every lot within the subdivision, which brings up its own set of questions, some of which are answered by HCD and then changed a week later and then changed a week later and then changed a week later. So I think we're all kind of struggling with this. I have heard that there are some other jurisdictions in the area that are seeing this. And so if anyone is seeing it, please let me know and let's have a conversation about it, because it's just interesting. HCD is saying once they are on their own individual lot, then they're no longer accessory dwelling units. So and we can charge fees or what? So there are many questions. Yeah. So subdivision of a subdivision of a subdivision. I don't know. Lots of questions around that. So I'm interested in hearing more from anyone who's also working through that. Lots of housing element implementation stuff that we're still needing to do. Getting our PDA. We're not a TOC community, so we're doing a PDA grant. And we're working on that. If you all have not heard, Sebastopol voted to look at going back to a two-way street system. So it's been a fun ride in Sebastopol. And I just opened an associate planner position like 2 days ago, and I need it filled by like June. So please send me any great prospects that you have.
Okay, thank you. I can go for the city of Healdsburg. So we have our station area master plan. We recently went through the RFP process and we selected someone. So that's going forward to council, I think on the 20th. So that'll be going forward. So I'm excited for that process to kick off. Hopefully, we're hoping for a June kickoff. So that'll be great. I think I said this at the last meeting, or maybe we were still in the process, but we did adopt an SB 9 and SB 684 1123 ordinance. Planning Commission has been a little slow, so I'm also doing our tree ordinance right now. So if anybody has like really great examples of a tree ordinance and a really wonderful definition for a heritage tree, or I'm also looking for like street tree replacement guidance. So if anybody has something really great that they have implemented that they love and works well, please send it my way. We also have 359 Hudson Street, which will be a senior living. I think it's 64 units, 65 units, something like that. So that's coming along with 10 affordable units with that. So that's exciting. Hopefully that moves along. And then if anybody is considering an SB 10 ordinance, also please reach out to me. But that's it for Healdsburg. Are there any other updates from anybody here in the room or on Zoom? Raise hands. Let's see.
Jennifer has.
Oh, yes, Jennifer.
I was reminded that we are also doing our first Earth Day in a long time. It's been a few years for us since we've done that. So we are joining up with the Community Center's Trash Bash. If you've never seen our Trash Bash, unfortunately, our Trash and Fashion is sold out. So you can't go to that, but it is an amazing event. Amazing fashion built out of trash. It's great. But we are going to be participating in Earth Day, and Antoinette's been working hard with our Climate Action Commission and others. And they're going to do a little speaker series, TED Talk style, with climate experts and some other vendors and things around climate. So we're excited for that. And more information is available, and it is next weekend, not this weekend.
All right.
And I don't have any tree stuff for you, so when you find it, you can share it with me.
Excellent.
I will say my last jurisdiction, but it's down south, but we had pretty strong regulations on things, so I'll look and send it to you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you so much. Okay. Any others?
Do two little things.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it was sent to most of you, but there are two upcoming webinars at MTC. Both of them are accessibility related. One of them is about like 508ing documents and PowerPoints, which, not limited to you all, like your city administrators or any staff that do public facing documents. It's not going to be recorded. So, you can ask us whatever questions you want to ask, and they will not be recorded for posterity. So I encourage you to share it, the outreach piece that we sent. We're also doing a webinar on with the Kelsey on Accessibility 101 for multifamily housing. It's a framework for approaching accessibility.
Different accessibility.
Yeah, different, not
Wheelchair
documents,
accessibility.
more than wheelchair, I think is the main point of the Kelsey. Not documents, but housing. The main thing with that is we have a grant to the Marin Housing Collaborative, and they're working with the Kelsey on doing some kind of like accessibility forward ordinances that we'll be sharing as kind of a regional document. But this is just an approach and framework. At the end of the grant, we'll also do a webinar on kind of implementation. So share that widely. Also, we're inviting some people from like public health, right? The built environment people and things like that, because it affects like in-home services as well as other places. So if you want to share that, that was also sent out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the email right now. If you want to get the links to those, that was sent out by Dawn on Tuesday, the 14th. So go ahead and just search for Dawn on Tuesday.
Okay,
Should come up.
sounds good. Anybody else? Any announcements? Chris, anything?
I would just say that our next SCTCA meeting is going to be held on April. That was our last meeting. So our last meeting was April 13th. Our next board meeting in May is going to be, we're a little behind. Yeah, May 11th. And our next PAC meeting is June 18th.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any public comments on items 2 through 8? Do we have any members of the public on Zoom?
No, there are no online comments.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't think we have any here. So that will conclude our meeting for today. The next PAC meeting is June 18th. And I would just encourage everybody to come if you can, so that we have a forum and can take some action on some of those action items that we have.
Next time.
All right, the meeting's adjourned.
We made it through the whole agenda.
It is.